Excuse me, you're in the wrong section. Coach is that way. Flight attendant Jessica Martinez's words landed like a slap. She pointed sharply toward the back of the plane, her tone polished with condescension. With a practiced pivot, she placed herself squarely in the aisle, blocking the man in front of her like a barrier made of fabric and pride. Terrence Williams stood tall, calm, unmoved. He wore a tailored navy suit, black Oxfords that gleamed beneath the cabin lights, and in one hand, a boarding pass. In the other, a leather briefcase with brass buckles. He hadn't even tried to sit yet. "This section is for our premium passengers only," Jessica said, her arms folding tightly across her chest. Nearby passengers shifted. A woman in seat 3 belowed her champagne flute, her eyes narrowing with interest. Someone in row 4 lifted a phone, hesitating, then hit record. A faint red light blinked as the phone streamed live to the internet. "I don't have all day for this," Jessica added, raising her voice to the cabin to hear. "Sir, back of the plane." A man whispered, "Here we go again." Terrence looked her directly in the eye. His expression was unreadable, somewhere between patience and quiet indignation. "I believe there's been a misunderstanding," he said, his voice calm, each word chosen like a chess move. "There's no misunderstanding," she barked back. "You're trying to sit in first class without proper documentation. Move." More phones came out. A woman in seat 2C was already live streaming. The screen displayed live 47 viewers. The number climbed. The comments started flooding in. "Discrimination, clear as day. Stay strong, brother." She didn't even look at his ticket. "Flight 447 departs in 10 minutes. The overhead speaker crackled, cool and indifferent to the human drama unfolding beneath it. Jessica turned, speaking to no one and everyone. Some people think they can just walk onto a plane and sit wherever they want. Entitlement at its finest. Terrence didn't raise his voice. He didn't step back. He simply held out the boarding pass. "If you'd just take a moment to check." She cut him off with a dismissive wave. "I don't need to check anything." A ripple of discomfort moved through the cabin. A boy in 4A whispered to his mother, "Why won't she just look at it?" From the back of the cabin, a male voice muttered, "This is messed up." The live stream count climbed past 89. Passengers leaned into the moment, some out of concern, some out of curiosity, and others for the views. Then came a shift. Mark Thompson, the cabin supervisor, appeared from the galley. With silvering temples and a polished badge that caught the light, he moved like a man who solved problems with a handshake and a half-listen. "What seems to be the problem here?" he asked, though his tone made it clear whose side he was on. Jessica's demeanor sharpened, empowered by backup. "This passenger is disrupting the boarding process and refusing to go to his proper seat," she said, gesturing at Terrence like he was a misplaced bag. Mark didn't look at the boarding pass. "Sir," he said, "we need you to cooperate with our crew. We have procedures for a reason." Terrence's phone buzzed silently in his pocket. Messages lit the screen in 4 different languages: French, Spanish, Arabic, and English. He ignored them. His eyes didn't leave Mark's. "I understand procedures," he said. "Perhaps we should follow them correctly." The live stream viewer count hit 156. Jessica scoffed. "You're holding up the entire flight." Another passenger pulled out her phone. She zoomed in on Terrence's face, calm, composed, unbothered. In the age of digital justice, silence speaks louder than protest. "Just let the man show his ticket," a voice shouted from the back. Jessica spun around. "Everyone needs to mind their own business. This is a crew matter." Flight 447 departs in 8 minutes. Then came security. Dave Rodriguez stepped onto the plane. His badge, his walk, his radio all said authority. The energy shifted. Passengers with phones raised them openly now. Recording wasn't secret anymore. It was solidarity. Jessica exhaled like the cavalry had arrived. "Dave," she said, "this passenger is refusing to move to his assigned seat." Dave turned toward Terrence, hand on his radio. "Sir, I'm going to need you to step aside so we can resolve this situation quickly." Terrence calmly shifted his briefcase to his other hand. Just for a second, something gleamed from the side, an embossed gold seal on the edge of his leather portfolio. It caught the cabin light. Then it vanished again. "I'm happy to resolve this," Terrence said. "I suggest we start by examining the facts." Mark stepped closer, his tone softening, more patronizing than helpful. "Look, sometimes people just make mistakes with bookings. We can't delay the whole flight over a seat mix-up." The live stream view count passed 284. Comments poured in like rain. "This is bigger than a seat." "Wow, she still hasn't looked at his ticket." "Bro, stay calm. We see you." From somewhere in the crowd, another phone buzzed. A voice read out loud, half in disbelief. "Wait, someone says it's a UN ambassador." Terrence's phone buzzed again. The screen lit up. UN headquarters. Urgent. He declined the call without a word. Then he spoke, measured, firm, respectful. "Gentlemen, lady, I believe there's been a fundamental misunderstanding about my seating arrangement." The overhead bins clicked shut. The passengers weren't just watching a delay anymore. They were watching a reckoning, and none of them were blinking. The silence in the cabin deepened, thick like fog, until even the word the air vent seemed too loud. Phones hovered in the air, recording the moment that was no longer just a misunderstanding. It had become a spectacle. Dave, the security officer, eyed the briefcase again. That gold seal, it didn't look decorative. It looked official. His fingers hovered above his radio. "Sir, can I see your ID?" he asked, his tone less commanding now. Terrence's reply came without a trace of panic. "Of course." He placed a briefcase on the seat beside him and calmly unzipped the front compartment. The leather creaked faintly under the pressure of the cabin's breathless attention. From inside, he pulled out a slim black wallet and unfolded it slowly, deliberately, like someone who had been in this position before. A flash of deep navy, a photograph, an official seal. Jessica craned her neck, her smirk slipping. Dave leaned forward. Mark's eyes narrowed. Terrence handed over the credentials with 2 fingers. "Ambassador Terrence Michael Williams, United Nations, Special Envoy for International Conflict Resolution." Jessica blinked. Mark paled. Dave let out a small breath and took a half step back. "Sir, He stopped. There was no excuse that would fit. The live stream hit 482 viewers. The woman in 2C whispered into her mic, "Here's a diplomat. A real one." Another phone buzzed. The comment section exploded. "I knew it. This man has more class than the whole crew combined. Apologize to him right now." She about to get fired on camera. Jessica's voice cracked the silence. I didn't know." Terrence turned his gaze to her. He wasn't angry. That would have been easy. Instead, his face showed something more dangerous. Disappointment. "You didn't want to know," he said quietly. "You decided who I was before I opened my mouth." She opened hers now, but nothing came out. Her arms fell to her sides. Her body language shifted from power to panic. Mark tried to salvage it. "Sir, please accept our apologies on behalf of the crew. I'm sure this was all a big misunderstanding." Terrence took back his ID, placed it neatly into his wallet, and looked directly into the lens of the nearest phone still recording. "Do you know how often this happens?" he asked aloud, not to any one person, but to all of them. To doctors, CEOs, judges, ambassadors, to fathers, to sons, to travelers who just want to sit down without being interrogated for existing in the wrong row. No questions, just judgment. Jessica stepped back, her face pale. Mark motioned toward an empty seat in 1A. "Please, Ambassador Williams, allow me to personally." "I'll sit in the seat I was assigned," Terrence interrupted. He held up his boarding pass, turning it so the cabin could see. Seat 1C. First class. Confirmed. Gasps. Laughter. A slow clap began somewhere in row 5, then spread unevenly as passengers shook their heads in disbelief. Flight 447 departs in 6 minutes. The announcement rang again, almost mocking. Terrence walked forward, not triumphant, but steady, pausing to pick up his briefcase. He took his seat in 1C without fanfare. No anger, no speech, just silence and a man reclaiming his space. Dave backed out of the cabin, speaking into his radio. "Gate 27. Situation resolved. Stand down. Mark lingered near the galley, avoiding eye contact with passengers still recording. Jessica stood motionless for a long moment, then slowly walked away, cheeks burning, eyes unfocused. Her spine was suddenly less straight. Flight attendants from the economy section whispered to each other. A woman in 3A mouthed the words that was wild to her seatmate. In 2C, the live stream hit 783 viewers. The woman behind the phone turned the camera on herself. If you all just saw that, he kept his cool the entire time. Dignity, grace, and not once did he raise his voice. Comments flew in. Send this to Delta HQ. This crew needs training. Or firing. That man is a king. The engine began to hum as the boarding door was closed. Flight 447 was ready for takeoff. But the cabin had changed. It wasn't just the passengers who were different now. It was the atmosphere itself. Everyone had seen it. Everyone had felt it. In seat 1C, Terrence pulled out a small tablet from his briefcase. He opened the document titled, Proposed Peace Framework, Geneva Draft. He glanced toward the window, took a quiet breath, and began reading. Behind him, whispers grew louder. Jessica was nowhere to be seen. In the terminal, an airline manager named Lindsay Cortez was receiving text after text from her staff. Her phone lit up again, this time from a number marked Media Inquiry. Outside, the aircraft rolled back from the gate. Inside, no one spoke to Terrence for the next 5 minutes. Not out of fear, out of respect. Flight 447 had taken off with one less illusion aboard, that appearances tell the whole story. And as the cloud swallowed the plane, the story was already soaring far beyond the altitude of cruising. It was flying across screens, hashtags, and breaking news banners. 7 hours later, arrival at JFK International Airport, New York City. The tires of Flight 447 screeched lightly against the tarmac, and a low murmur of relief swept through the cabin. Passengers reached for bags. Babies cried. Phones buzzed alive as airplane mode was turned off. Texts, notifications, news alerts pouring in like floodwater. And then it hit. The passenger screens all showed some variation of the same headline. Delta flight attendant confronts black diplomat. UN official wrongly accused of sneaking into first class. Flight 447 incident goes viral. I believe there's been a misunderstanding, becomes new rallying cry. Seat 1C trending worldwide. Terrence remained seated, watching the flurry of screens with quiet detachment. He had known this moment would come. He had not planned it, but he had expected it. The woman from 2C approached slowly, respectfully, her phone no longer recording. She held it in both hands as though it were fragile. I just wanted to say thank you, she said, for staying calm, for making them see. Terrence offered a gentle nod, his voice low. I wasn't calm. I was trained to appear calm. She blinked, unsure what to say, then stepped aside. As passengers deplaned, many glanced at him. Some offered silent nods of solidarity. Others simply walked past, shame in their eyes. Jessica Martinez was not among them. She had disappeared before wheels touched down, pulled aside by management the moment the plane taxied to the gate. Terrence stood last, briefcase in hand, and stepped into the jet bridge. A Delta representative waited for him, flanked by 2 senior managers and a security officer. Her name tag read, Lindsay Cortez, Corporate Affairs. Ambassador Williams, she began, her tone reverent and rehearsed. On behalf of Delta Airlines, I would like to personally apologize for the unacceptable experience you endured aboard our flight. We have placed a flight attendant on immediate leave pending investigation. Our CEO is reaching out directly, and Terrence raised a hand. No public apology, he said quietly. She blinked. I'm sorry. He stepped closer. I don't want a press release. I want a cultural shift. One that begins before someone like me walks onto a plane. The managers behind her said nothing. They knew this was bigger than policy. It was about perception. Lindsay hesitated. Understood. Would you be willing to consult with us? Send the paperwork, he said. But I'm not interested in helping you save face. I'm interested in helping you see. He walked past them. No cameras. No entourage. Just a man with a briefcase and a storm behind him. Elsewhere, 2 hours later, Jessica Martinez sat in a cramped room with no windows, hands clasped in her lap, eyes red. She had been questioned for an hour, then left alone. A tablet on the table replayed the footage. Her voice echoed from the speaker. "Coach is that way. Back of the plane. Move." She flinched as her own words echoed back at her. Detached, cruel, blind. The door opened. An HR executive stepped in, her expression unreadable. "Jessica, we're suspending you pending final review. We'll be in contact." Jessica nodded, not because she agreed, but because there was nothing left to say. Meanwhile, United Nations headquarters, New York. Terrence Williams stepped through the marble entryway of the UN, his badge flashing through security without hesitation. He was no stranger to this place. He had once walked these halls as a junior aide, fresh out of Howard University, cleaning up coffee spills and translating for diplomats too tired to notice him. Now, he stood taller than ever, not because the world respected him more, but because he no longer needed a permission to exist in first class. His assistant, Hannah, met him at the elevator. "Sir," she said, handing him a thick manila folder, "you've had 11 interview requests. CNN, BBC, The Root, The Guardian, and Trevor Noah's people want to talk to you. They are calling you the man in 1C. Terrence chuckled softly. Trevor's not even on the air anymore. Still wants to talk. "I bet he does." She hesitated. "Do you want to respond?" "No." "Should I cancel?" "No." "I'll respond, but not in a studio." She blinked. "Where, then?" Terrence looked out the tall glass windows of the UN tower. Below him, the world moved, blind and fast. "Everywhere," he said. Later that night, Brooklyn, New York. The apartment was modest but well-lit, filled with the smell of old books and sandalwood incense. Terrence sat on the couch, legs crossed, scrolling through the viral videos on a muted phone. Seat 1C had hit 3.4 million views. He clicked off the screen. He wasn't surprised. He had seen the world's reaction before, when his mentor, a diplomat of Jamaican descent, had been detained in a London airport for suspicious luggage because he carried tribal artifacts gifted to him by African ministers. He had seen it when his own father, a retired federal judge, was pulled over in D.C. in his Lexus because his plates didn't match the driver profile. He had lived this in 100 ways, and this time, the world had caught it on camera.